A 30-year-old woman plays a video game for the first time and encounters someone she wants to protect for life. She even spends $1 million in microtransactions just to see her beloved smile. Tired of her corporate job, Moriko, at the age of 30, fires her boss and prematurely starts her retirement. However, the mundane life proves a bit too boring, and so Moriko downloads a game online. In character customization and choosing the gender, she makes choices that most people wouldn't understand. After pressing the confirm button, a handsome male character named Hayashi is born. The system quickly sends her the first task for beginners, but the target, a rat, is less than cooperative. Unwilling to give up, Moriko tries again, but the outcome remains unchanged. She is consistently knocked back to the respawn point. After repeated failures, Moriko begins to doubt herself. Just as she is about to give up, she receives a message of concern from a big-eyed cute girl. After learning about Moriko's troubles, Lily, who knows the struggles of newcomers, decides to help her as much as she can. Facing the friend request, I don't understand why Moriko is so excited. Under Lily's guidance, Moriko's skills and levels improve dramatically. When she faces the giant rat again, she easily defeats it. The rat drops a silver sword and a bronze treasure chest as rewards. Looking at the pair of bracelets in the chest besides money, Moriko thought it was something valuable. Lily explains that they are a couple's accessory. Excited, Moriko immediately wears it. Unknowingly, their relationship gradually grows closer, and the sweet atmosphere stirs Moriko's quiet heart once more. One day, Moriko finds a fun spot and eagerly calls Lily over, but Lily accidentally falls into a romantic trap. As time passes, Moriko becomes more adept at the game. With Christmas just days away, the game is filled with related activities. Thus, Moriko plans another romantic gesture. The next day when she logs on, Lily comes to play as usual, but Moriko finds an excuse to leave hurriedly. She continues to do so, oblivious to Lily's growing sadness. At a guild meeting, Himeralda finds Lily sad in a corner and learns the whole story. She then informs the guild leader, who immediately approaches Moriko. Although the guild forbids romance, the leader states that rules are rigid but people are not. After all, everyone plays games to relax, and he hopes Moriko won't worry too much about the rules. Moriko says she never cared about them. She was just busy preparing a Christmas gift. Learning that she has been working hard in dungeons to get a crystal rose for Lily, a gift not available through microtransactions, impresses the guild leader. However, realizing Lily is unhappy because of her, Moriko quickly goes to her. Lily asks if she did something to upset her or if it's just her misunderstanding. Moriko, sitting in front of her computer, doesn't know how to comfort herself, nor does she understand the emotions of a girl. Fortunately, Lily is smart and doesn't dwell too much on this issue. Moriko gathers her courage to confess and insists that Lily must log in on Christmas because she has prepared a surprise for her. Only after Lily agrees does Moriko finally feel relieved. Finally, Christmas arrives. Since the food at home is all eaten, Moriko runs to the supermarket downstairs to buy groceries. Surrounded by couples in the supermarket, Moriko feels very annoyed and just wants to finish shopping quickly to go back and meet Lily. But the checkout line is incredibly long, and to make matters worse, her stomach starts growling. Thankfully, a chicken leg appears just in time, but as she is about to ask for it, she encounters an embarrassing moment. "Could you get me a chicken leg?" After escaping from the socially awkward situation, Moriko hurries to log in and quietly waits for Lily. Upon logging in, Lily greets her with a loving kiss and tenderly wishes her a Merry Christmas. After Lily presents her Christmas gift, Moriko then realizes to give the carefully prepared item she had. Although she did not get the crystal rose, she had spent money to buy a rose brooch for Lily. Seeing Lily very satisfied with the gift, Moriko finally relaxes. To make her significant other happy, she even stays up all night to accompany Lily to the point of getting a fever of 38 degrees Celsius. But on her way to the hospital, she is elbowed by a blonde man with glasses at the corner of the street. At this moment, she doesn't know that the big-eyed cute girl in the game is actually this man in disguise. When she wakes up, she finds herself in an unknown hospital. Seeing Moriko awake, the man quickly reminds her that her arm is still on an 4 drip, apologizes sincerely, writes down his contact information, and hands it over, promising to take responsibility for any issues henceforth. Feeling fine, Moriko rushes back home from the hospital. Looking at the contact information left by Yuta, Moriko doesn't know how to thank him properly, so she logs into the game to ask her guild friends. After listening, everyone treats it like a romantic story, offering various suggestions ranging from inviting him for a meal to unfolding the plot like in a romance novel. Only the guild leader, a straightforward person, suggests simply saying thanks. After a brief internal struggle, Moriko decides to send a message first. Not to worry him, she checks the text content meticulously before sending it. Meanwhile, Yuta, seeing the message content, quickly puts down his utensils to reply. Receiving an instant reply, Moriko becomes even more unsettled because Yuta says that things were too rushed in the hospital and he would like to invite her to a meal to apologize properly. Although Moriko finds it troublesome and doesn't really want to go, she cannot resist his attractiveness, which completely matches her standards for choosing a partner. To assess herself, Moriko looks carefully at herself in the mirror. Seeing the plain Jane in the mirror, she can't muster any courage at all. Sorry to keep you waiting. No, I just arrived. This scene is indeed awkward. After Moriko finally calmed herself down and formulated a reply, it was already 2 a.m. by the time she sent it. When Yuta woke up the next day, what he saw was Moriko's tactful rejection. Relieved of pressure, Moriko felt light and immediately turned on her computer to enjoy gaming. As soon as she logged in, the system notified her that Lily had sent a gift. To her surprise, it was a set of luxurious clothes priced at 20 million. Upon seeing this, the guild's chubby member began to fantasize, wondering if this was Lily's ploy to woo her. Moriko, who was taken aback by the reaction, completely lost her composure. She tried to distract herself, but the thought lingered on her mind. Thus, she decided to return to the game and gave back the gift to Lily. Lily thought the gift might not have been to her liking, but the honest Moriko accidentally blurted out the chubby member's speculation. Caught off guard, Lily sincerely admitted that there was indeed that element involved, and then shared her past experiences. Newly arrived, she was very popular and joined a guild randomly to find teammates to play with. However, the backstabbing nature of humanity was omnipresent, and her sweet appearance always brought endless troubles. Although she could have simply quit the game, she wanted to continue at all costs. Fortunately, fate brought Moriko into her life. During their interactions, she found that Moriko truly loved gaming, and playing together made her feel relaxed. After sharing everything, Lily made a request to Moriko, expressing her wish for them to become partners and face various challenges together. Hearing this, Moriko was so excited she felt as if Cupid had struck her heart. Could this be the feeling of a heartbeat? The other person was a woman, and it wasn't about romance, but she was incredibly happy. Then, Moriko put on the clothes Lily had sent and happily agreed to become her partner. The man, who appeared unassuming, was playing a female character in the virtual world. Having finally caught a handsome man, it turned out he was the one she had secretly admired. However, before Yuta could recover from this happy news, his shameless best friend had already made a move. Since the elbow incident with Moriko, Yuta had fallen in love with her at first sight. Learning that Moriko had once worked in the same company as his best friend, he called Hamar to inquire about her. In Yuta's presence, Hamar claimed he barely remembered her as it was just a brief acquaintance. However, when he saw her at the supermarket the next day, he recognized her immediately despite her plain appearance. Seeing her drastic change, Hamar naturally returned. It wasn't until he formally introduced himself that Moriko suddenly realized she finally remembered the man who used to listen and counsel her during her most helpless times at the company. Thus, when he asked her out for dinner to catch up, Moriko agreed without a second thought. Having gotten her contact information, Hamar immediately went to brag to Yuta. He even used the news of their upcoming dinner to provoke him, causing Yuta to become so despondent that he lost interest in playing games that evening. Just when Moriko, who had something on her mind, came looking, she shared the story of her chance encounter with Yuta in real life and how she inadvertently agreed to have dinner with Hamar. Upon hearing this, Yuta already had a rough idea of what was going on but deluded himself into thinking it was all just a coincidence and didn't take it seriously, even encouraging her to bravely keep the appointment. Unaware of the situation, Moriko wanted to make a good impression on Hamar and even tidied up her hair the next day, spending a lot of money on a new dress and makeup at the mall. Meanwhile, Yuta, who was at work, suddenly discovered that Hamar had gone to Osaka on a business trip, meaning that Moriko was fussing over nothing. Clueless Moriko was still preparing her makeup meticulously for the evening dinner, completely forgetting that Hamar had rescheduled. When Yuta logged into the game to check on Moriko's account, she was indeed offline. Although he wasn't sure if Hayashi was Moriko in real life, he couldn't bear the thought of her being stood up, so he logged off just as his team was about to start a session. As it turned out, Moriko, who had dressed up and arrived on time, waited for a long time but Hamar didn't show up. Just as she turned to leave, disappointed, a hurried Yuta called out to her. But inappropriately, Hamar called at that moment. He too was worried that Moriko had forgotten about the rescheduled time, so he called her as soon as he was free. Hearing Moriko's realization, he couldn't resist teasing her, asking if she was so looking forward to their date. Since Moriko had been neglecting Yuta while chatting, she apologized to Yuta. Hamar, sensing the awkwardness, quickly asked Moriko to put him on speaker and directly asked Yuta if Moriko wasn't very cute. Moriko, embarrassed, hurriedly warned him to stop making inappropriate jokes, not thinking herself cute as a woman in her 30s. Surprisingly, Yuta then said, "Very cute," heightening the atmosphere, only to suddenly change his tone and praise how well Moriko and Hamar matched, calling it the most cowardly moment he had seen from a male protagonist. Even Hamar couldn't stand it and encouraged Moriko, since they were there anyway, to just enjoy her time with Yuta. Thus, the time meant for Moriko and Yuta finally began. They talked a lot at the dinner, and when Moriko asked why Yuta was there, he still chose to hide the truth, claiming it was just a coincidence. The next day, a heartbroken Yuta decided to lock away his feelings, planning to only play games online with Moriko and not engage with her offline anymore. Just as he was about to bury these feelings, he suddenly received a provocative text from Hamar, hinting at inappropriate intentions towards Moriko, which alarmed Yuta and made him rush over to Hamare's place. However, what he found was Hamar mocking him. Moriko had already safely gotten home under his escort. Despite Yuta claiming to be indifferent, his actions showed just how much he cared at every turn. Before this, the sudden death of his foster parents turned the man into a wealthy man overnight. However, he chose to sell the huge mansion and move into a low-cost apartment, willingly becoming a recluse immersed in online gaming. It was this decision that led him to find a partner in the game later on. Yuta quickly became a top player through in-game purchases. While he was enjoying the game, he received a carry request from a player named Yuki. Always friendly to newcomers, Yuta readily agreed. Under his guidance, Yuki quickly improved. As their relationship grew, Yuta looked forward to her presence every day. Unexpectedly, after Yuki complained about her job in real life, she disappeared from the game and never returned. Years later, Yuta, playing a female character in another new game, started a romance that felt much more exhilarating than flirting as a male character. Surprisingly, due to a previous coincidence, he discovered that the other party was the girl he had liked in real life. Seeing that his good friend Hamar was also pursuing Moriko, he chose to keep silent and quietly backed out. It was only when he saw Moriko and Hamar create new characters to play that Yuta could no longer sit still. He created a character similar to the one he used with Yuki, using a similar name to test if Moriko was the Yuki from before. Although Moriko recognized that this person was Yuta, she showed no reaction when she saw the name. Meanwhile, Moriko didn't know how to pronounce the name, so she simply asked Yuta to stop and asked how to say it. Yuta, though speechless, pronounced the name Hearth. The moment she heard the name, a flood of memories rushed back to Moriko, as if everything had returned to that summer years ago. She then relaxed in her chair, relieved. Yuta's guess was right. Moriko was indeed the Yuki who had been so close to him before. Thinking of the gentle and considerate man in the game who had always been by her side, she couldn't help but blush profusely, even awkwardly thinking about digging a 5-bedroom, 6-hall with her toes. Just as Moriko was about to confirm the identity again, Yuta made an excuse to leave the game early. Unwilling to give up, Moriko immediately picked up her phone and called him. Hearing her voice, Yuta hurriedly answered. Shyly, Moriko gathered her courage and asked for confirmation. Yuta's answer was indeed satisfying. Long time no see, Yuki. Have you ever felt like Moriko at that moment, both happy and shy when you hear your loved one on the phone, unconsciously grabbing at everything? At that moment, Moriko was incredibly excited, not knowing that Yuta had another bombshell news that he hadn't yet revealed. Thus, he prepared his heart to take this chance to confess. Actually, I am also Lily. Unaware, Moriko saw Yuta suddenly hang up the call and thought it was because her excitement and excessive talking annoyed him, so she sent Yuta a text, hoping they could talk more about the past when he was free. Yuta, who had finally charged up, also realized that Moriko hadn't heard the last 2 sentences. Who knew that when he returned home from work that evening, he would run into Moriko on the street. At that moment, Moriko's stomach decided to join the conversation with a timely growl. Yuta then handed her the boxed meal he had bought, worried that she might catch a cold from the chilly weather, and draped a scarf and his coat over her shoulders. They chatted about their first meeting and their experiences in the game. Yuta's gentleness in the conversation made Moriko feel a sense of familiarity, as if the character CP Lily from the game had come to life right before her eyes. His gentleness comforting. If one could still hold back after hearing this, I'd have to commend our male protagonist for his immense patience and ability to keep his cool, as he finally revealed that he was indeed Lily. Unexpectedly, the cute girl with big eyes from the game was actually Yuta, who had always been favorably perceived by her. Upon hearing this, Moriko initially felt a mix of nervous excitement and confusion, eventually becoming flustered. The thought of her online persona being uncovered left her frozen in place, not knowing what to do. Her reaction, however, led Yuta to misunderstand, thinking that his posing as a girl in the game had upset her. Thus, Yuta made a painful decision. He announced that he would no longer disturb Moriko in the game, frightening her into standing up quickly to explain and apologize for deceiving him with her online persona. Yuta hastily apologized as well, since he had done the same. The two apologized to each other, and it was almost like a formal vow exchange. Moriko subtly requested that he continue to accompany her in the game, but the innocent Yuta failed to grasp the implication. Instead, foolishly thinking he was being friend-zoned, he forced a smile to avoid making Moriko feel bad and pretended to agree. However, in the days that followed, he never showed up in the game again. Without Yuta, Moriko found no interest in the game, though she considered calling him to ask why he had disappeared. She hesitated, unsure of how to start the conversation. On the other hand, Yuta was also out of sorts, spending his days drowning his sorrows with friends. Seeing Yuta's downtrodden state, Hamar teased him, asking for the reason. In his blurred consciousness, Yuta responded that he had been dumped. Once Hamar heard this, he guessed the situation and sent Moriko a text message. Waiting by her phone, Moriko thought it was Yuta and panicked. Trembling, she picked up the phone only to find out it was Hamar, asking her to meet at the park the next day. The next day, a groggy Yuta woke up and saw Homari's note asking him to go to the park. Following the address on the note, Yuta was surprised to find the very person he had been yearning for. Seeing the two finally meet, the instigator Hamar could finally relax. The reunion was full of unspoken awkwardness. Moriko regretted not dressing up more beautifully before leaving home, while Yuta wished he could find a hole to crawl into. He had promised Moriko just a week ago to accompany her in the game, but had not logged on since. While they were still pondering what to talk about, Moriko's stomach broke the silence again. Much to her embarrassment, Yuta then suggested they go to the supermarket to grab some snacks. However, their attractive appearance led the salesperson to mistake them for a couple. Unexpectedly, upon hearing this, Moriko suddenly became emotionally agitated and ran out. It wasn't until Yuta caught up with her at a red light that he learned the reason. She felt she was dressed too shabbily and had embarrassed Yuta, thinking she was not worthy to walk beside Mr. Yuta. In reality, Yuta didn't think that way at all. Upon hearing this, Moriko couldn't help but shed tears. The sky seemed to empathize with her as it began to pour heavily. Yuta then took off his jacket and covered Moriko's head with it, proposing that they head to his nearby apartment to take shelter from the rain and to make her something to eat. Watching Moriko standing there speechlessly, Yuta took it upon himself to bring her home. Only then did he start to panic, wondering how appropriate it was for a single man and woman to be alone together. The naive Moriko also realized what had happened and how she had thoughtlessly followed him. As a host, Yuta quickly welcomed Moriko into his home. To prevent a cold, Moriko decided to take a hot shower first. Unintentionally seeing her reflection in the mirror, she momentarily found herself at a loss for words. Pleased with her appearance, her self-admiration was interrupted only when Yuta came with some clothes, which turned out to be comically large. While serving Moriko hot ginger water, Yuta accidentally saw something he shouldn't have. Due to a computer crash, Moriko called Yuta, who was told it was about setting up a computer. Without a second thought, Yuta agreed. Knowing that her crush was coming to her house, the 30-year-old single lady hurriedly cleaned the bathtub spotlessly and even changed the bed sheets, though it was unclear why she did so. As a gaming enthusiast, Moriko had never cleaned her room before. To avoid exposing her normally untidy self, she quickly packed things away. Seeing the clean room finally allowed Moriko to relax. She checked around to ensure nothing was missed, but realized she hadn't had time to clean the bathtub. Thinking it wouldn't be used, she chose to ignore it. However, seeing the cleaning supplies, she turned back to clean just in case. Once Yuta arrived with the parts, he was indeed surprised by her clean and tidy room. A shy Moriko quickly reminded him not to look around too much. Yuta then set down the parts and began assembling the computer. As programming required a lot of time, Moriko turned to make tea for him. However, the sight of a man working diligently was too charming, causing Moriko to lose focus and not notice the tea overflowing until it spilled onto the floor. When Yuta tried to help, he tripped over a chair and accidentally fell onto her. Moriko was so overwhelmed that she fainted. Before any further developments could occur, someone suddenly rang the doorbell. When Moriko opened the door, she found it was a door-to-door salesperson promoting swimming and fitness services. Annoyed, she forcefully shut the door. Those brief few seconds felt like a long century to Yuta. After finally completing the computer assembly, the two tentatively started a game. Noticing that characters could soak in a hot spring after clearing the game, Yuta casually mentioned he hadn't soaked in one for a long time. Hearing this, Moriko thought it was an invitation and felt relieved that her bathroom cleaning wasn't in vain. However, she argued internally that she hadn't really thought about it that way. To ease the awkwardness, Yuta quickly tried to explain, but only ended up making things more confusing. What was initially a vague comment turned into a real invitation. Seeing Moriko's clearly embarrassed face, Yuta continued to explain that it was just to relax and also mentioned that staying overnight away from work would be a good choice. Hearing about staying overnight, Moriko became even more shy. Yuta then suggested including Hamar, saying he and Hamar would share a room and Moriko would have her own. This temporarily eased the awkwardness on the screen. When they parted, Moriko earnestly thanked him for everything he had done today. But just as she was about to go upstairs, Yuta called her back. His face turned red with shyness as he said he had something very important to tell Moriko. Just as he was about to confess, the noise from a passing child made it impossible for Moriko to hear clearly. Seeing this, Yuta once again buried his feelings and pretended that he just hoped they could continue to be good friends. Unaware of his true feelings, Moriko readily agreed. When the day they all agreed on came, Moriko arrived at the station early. Hamar was his usual self, immediately teasing Moriko and joking with her. Yuta also hurried over at this time. Unexpectedly, Hamar then said he had something else to do and could not join the gathering, telling them to have a good time. Hearing this, an embarrassed Yuta quickly scolded him for being unfair and whispered something in his ear that made Yuta blush even more before turning to leave. Since the trip was already planned, they couldn't just cancel because the third wheel was absent. Watching couples pass by in groups, Yuta and Moriko could only exchange smiles to ease the awkwardness. But as they passed a street-side window, Moriko seemed to see herself and Yuta as characters. She began to ponder their relationship. In the game, they were partners, but what were they in reality? Yuta turned around, sensing something was off, and walked towards Moriko. Recalling the time she had spent with Yuta, Moriko's heart found its answer. Perhaps she should also take the brave first step. Just as she almost stumbled, Yuta quickly grabbed her hand and steadied her. Moriko politely thanked him, and this time Yuta did not let go out of shyness, and Moriko immediately responded to this gesture. "Let's go!" "Okay."